They said he looks nicer, but she looks like a Shelby kind of.
She does look like a Shelby.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, we just, every time we do snow riding.
Just love the Shelby mix. How are you? China. She was brought by the Shelby.
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you.
Good evening. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, she was out. But now we've got a neat name, so there's better.
Yeah.
We've got these fancy kids' names, and then they're designers on it.
Oh, I definitely did put it on the calendar.
Oh, that was nothing
Our
like
dog's on
China.
We dress
China go, I thought she's had all the pros.
well, like I said, they said she like she acts. But
My dog had the long hair from the Sheltie.
well, she does have long hair on the belly and on her tail, but we have a Shelby, so.
And Dora, I thought she was black. Was it that long ago? It was almost 10 years. Because I've never seen her here recently. I mean, it's just a black and white. And Dora was the first non
She's got the size of that Shelby that we got. She's 10 years. Like that. But then the one before her was.
Hey, Brian.
Welcome, everyone. Appreciate you coming tonight. Thought for a minute there we were going to be talking to the empty benches. My name is Dick Hasko. I'm with WGI Lawton Group. We are consultants working with the city as program managers for the entire bond program in all 4 districts. I just wanted to take a few minutes before I turn this over to our District 2 consultant, Matthews Baxter. And they're going to take you through some things with what we're going to be proposing for the streets in your neighborhood. And after all that, they're going to allow you to come up here and put some red dots on whatever of these particular elements here address some concerns that you may have, whether it be cracked sidewalks or curbs or speeding or whatever that is. But I just wanted to take a few minutes up front to kind of explain how we've orchestrated this thing. We're having a set of 2 meetings with each neighborhood. And sometimes we're splitting the neighborhoods up depending on where they are and the types of use in the neighborhood. The first meeting, which is this your first meeting tonight, what we're going to do is our plans are maybe 50% done. So we want to take the opportunity to show you some of the elements that were the basic elements that are going to be involved with the improvement program in your street. And then after that, again, the primary reason for tonight's meeting is to get feedback from you. We need you to tell us on your street, in front of your house, on your block, what are the problems that you see? I mean, the condition of the street probably should be pretty obvious. That's why it's in the program. But do you experience any, and this is something that you should have seen this week, do you experience any ponding or flooding anywhere in your streets? Do you have a sense that there's speeding happening on your streets? Those are the types of things that we need your feedback, because you live there, you see it 24/7. So it's really important to us to get that feedback so that we can then take those elements and see what we can do to address them in the design of the project. The second meeting that we will have, which I think is already scheduled, but I'm not sure exactly when it is. The second meeting we will have is we will ask you to come back, and the plans will be 95 or almost 100% done. And the purpose of that meeting is to show you how we've been able to incorporate or address your concerns, whatever of those items it may have been in the design of the plan, or if we weren't able to try and explain to you why we couldn't. Okay, so that's the format of the meeting series, and we appreciate you coming out tonight. We hope you'll come out for the second meeting. You'll get flyers again. The only other thing that you need to realize, and I like to just say this up front, is that The thrust of the program, the primary focus of the program is dealing with the road problems, the potholes, the cracking, the crack curbs, the sidewalks, drainage issues, things like that. The budgets that were established, all 40 million of them, were established on that basis. So when we're trying to deal with for example, speeding issues, and perhaps try and incorporate some traffic calming issues into your streets and your neighborhoods, we have to kind of take a look at that and see how we're going to factor that into the budget. And we're going to try and do as much of that as we need to do to solve the problem. But you just need to understand that we will be under budgetary constraints when we try to do that. That's my whole deal. So I
just wanted to point out that District 2 Commissioner Hardy is here.
Yeah, I just wanted to welcome Commissioner Hardy. Brian Shields is your Water Utilities Director.
Hi, everybody.
Where's Julie? Julie Parham is your Assistant Water Utilities Director. And I am going to turn it over to Rebecca Travis at this time, who is with Matthews, and she is going to take you through all this. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. So as Richard mentioned, the road program is established. Streets that were selected were based on a preliminary report, or excuse me, a previously completed report, which identified, as you said, potholes and cracked pavement, asphalt. So the streets specific to this project that we're talking about tonight have already been selected. And they include 6th Avenue North between A and F, 5th Avenue North between C and F, 4th Avenue North between B and F, 3rd Avenue North between A and F, and 2nd Avenue North between B and F. And then we also have North C between 3rd and 5th. So we started out with doing a traffic count analysis where we put up radar detectors at various locations within your neighborhood, and also north and west of the neighborhood. We were trying to determine whether there was speeding problems in addition to just a lot of traffic. So the counters counted number of cars as well as registered their speed. So one of the things we were thinking, well, maybe people use this neighborhood as a cut through from Dixie down to Lucerne Lake. We didn't really see that so much. It seemed like mostly the cars stayed on Dixie and Lucerne and Lake. And the speeds did not exceed the parameters for warranting traffic calming. So that was one of the reasons we want to have, we'll talk a little bit more about this voting board later, where Richard indicated you could put up your areas of concern. But from the number standpoint, we're not seeing a speeding or a traffic volume problem in this area. So we're, as we said, we wanted to get your anecdotal response to that, whether that's truly plays out with what you're actually seeing. Then we also are looking at underground utility improvements. We certainly don't want to do brand new road, pave a brand new road, fix all the curbs and all the sidewalks that are cracked, and then come to find out later on that the sewer is damaged or needs replaced. So we've done a sewer analysis, primarily determined that on 3rd Avenue North, there's a section on either side of D, the alley from on either side of D to the alley east of it to the west of D needs to be replaced. So that portion of 3rd will be dug up. The rest of the sewer on 3rd, we're going to line, the city's going to line that, so that won't be a excavation to get that done. They'll go in from the manhole, line it, and then come up the other manhole, so they don't have to dig up the street for that. We also will be milling, so grinding off the asphalt on all the streets, 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and C. grind off the asphalt down like maybe inch to 2 inches and lay new asphalt. Then we've gone through, walked through all the areas and checked whether you have cracked curb or broken sidewalk flags. We'll be replacing those as needed. We're not going to just go in and replace all the curb and sidewalk because that'd just be a waste of money. So we're just fixing the problems that we find. Then at every intersection, we're going to make sure that they're ADA compliant, American with Disabilities Act. So basically that's going to be like the ramps at each sidewalk where it goes to the street crossing. And then we'll be putting those rubber mats with the domes, and they're yellow, so that that's a tactile surface for blind pedestrians to indicate that they're going to come out onto the street. So at every intersection, that has to be done. So all the 4 corners, the sidewalk will be replaced, torn out and replaced just at the corners typically. Then if there was any driveway aprons, concrete aprons coming off your driveway, but just from the back of the sidewalk into the street, if those are cracked, we'll replace that. We're not going to go into your yard or up into your driveway to replace that. It's only going to be from the right-of-way line, which is the back of the sidewalk, into the street. And then also at the alleys, we'll be putting a concrete driveway apron and then paving into the alleys 10 feet with concrete apron.
So 10 feet into each alley with a concrete apron?
Yes. And that's a city standard for the alleys, alley improvements. The reason we want to go 10 feet up into the alley is what you find is that when it rains, the dirt or the gravel from the alley starts washing out into the street. We want to keep that from happening. And again, this is a city standard that we put the concrete apron in there with the 10 feet back. Let's see what else we're going to do. So there's a couple locations where we've noted ponding, drainage problems. Sometimes the street has settled right in front of the drainage inlet, right in front of the grate, and so then you get a pond there. We're going to fix that either by lowering the drainage inlet, talking maybe an inch or 2, or putting a continuous slope, more of a constant slope to direct the runoff into the inlet from the road. So your road's not going to be, how it settles kind of like that. And we'll be, sometimes the manholes, lids will be sticking up kind of above, and then the asphalt settling around that. We're going to fix that kind of situation as well. So you'll have a smoother street with the runoff being directed to the drainage inlets. And a couple places down on 2nd, we're going to add a couple inlets. Or just some low points in the road that need inlets. So we'll be cutting a hole in the ground and installing that and connecting it to the pipe system.
So, may I ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
Ray Lofton, president of Apple Ridge neighborhood. It's my understanding that except for, may I get up?
Sure.
Okay. It's my understanding that except for these 2 sections here, which are being redone on the PCI index, even though they don't really seem to be much different than any of our other roads, all of these east-west streets are not being done because of the PCI index. The streets aren't bad. They're actually being done because of a water project or a utility project. I just want to find out more about that and what's happening with those streets. Can someone address that?
Well, there's no water main improvements on this project.
Okay.
3rd is being done because of the sewer, partially because of the sewer improvements. And same with 2nd. There's quite a bit of issue on the eastern end because F Street is low. So your drainage runs down towards the east and impacts the pavement section.
So because you're talking about just grading and milling, but are these actually, is it just grading and milling? And if so, I'm confused because I don't know that these streets fall under that category for the PCI plans. That's why I thought they were all being dug up because of utility issues that were being addressed. So I just wanted to find out
There
more about that.
There are road improvements in the bond report that are included that are just going to be milled and overlaid.
And it was my understanding from the report that that was only the 2 blocks of C Street. The 300 and the 400 block of C Streets were the only ones that were being addressed
Here.
for milling, correct?
Yeah, that's originally going to be milled and overlaid, and it still is.
Okay.
Then, yes, there were some proposed drainage improvements that were reviewed to determine the need for that and balance that against a budget constraint. And that was determined that was not going to be done, those drainage. It was exfiltration trench to percolate the drainage.
That's what I'm referring to, because that's what I was originally told.
Right.
So that's not going to be done.
That is not going to be done.
Okay.
However, we're still going to do a mill and overlay. Instead of doing a complete roadway reconstruction, which
Yes.
costs substantially more money,
Okay.
we're still milling and overlaying all
Okay.
these east-west
So
streets.
I don't want to speak against something that is an improvement, but I'm not aware that the PCI index would even indicate that these roads need to be done if they're not being excavated.
Well, Third Avenue North, right there by the Gardens, Tony.
No, I mean, granted, there are, but this is, each individual block is graded, given a score, correct?
So I think maybe something that might be a source of confusion is that if you look at the website where they have the list of roads, there are PCI scores or numbers for other roads, but for second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, there is a WP. And I guess many of us were taking that to mean like water project or something. And I guess it's only that Third Avenue North is a water utility project. So what was it about the roads on second and fourth and fifth and sixth that prompted us to want to fix them if it wasn't based on the PCI? Am I getting at what you're...
Absolutely. So
Okay.
what I'm hearing is there was a plan
Yes.
to address the drainage. And if that's not going to be done, and these roads are just being milled and resurfaced, wonderful. But I don't think if they were looked at with as PCI scores with all the other roads that they would even be done. So that's why I'm getting confused.
I don't know that we know the PCI scores for these roads because they're not public.
And I'm basing that on my knowledge of the road. So I'm just thinking the roads wouldn't fall under the same conditions that some of these other roads are being done, because they're really, except for certain blocks, they're really nothing wrong with them. And most of these blocks, you will not even find a problem. So
Well, I don't know about how the PCI number was established. That was done on a previous report. And
Okay.
you're correct as far as one of the reasons that we were looking at full reconstruction was to put the exfiltration trench in the ground, and now that we're not doing that,
okay.
is there a chance to save money? Possibly, yes. In addition, when we started the design work for this next phase, we also did pavement cores throughout the neighborhood, and I reviewed those. And I'm not sure how the PCI number, if that was also pavement cores or not. So some of the streets have been found to be below the minimum standard as far as a structural number, which is calculated based on the thickness of asphalt and rock. Yes, a lot of the road looks in pretty good condition. Some of the other parts of it has a lot of alligator cracking, which is marginal. And it could be that you might have a good stretch and then you have a part that still should be milled and overlaid, and then you have another. So we don't know if we want to do
Right.
a patchwork either, so.
And
but
I
we will-
apologize, I would have brought this to anyone's attention before the meeting tonight. I just thought that this would be a forum to bring this out. And honestly, when I look at this map, one thing that becomes obvious to me, being real familiar with the roads, is that these east-west streets, I can identify, I can tell you which blocks are the worst. And in a lot of cases, in a lot of cases, it's going to be this block that's not included, that's missing sidewalks. This half block right here that goes to the tracks, this half block right here that goes to the tracks, and none of these are included. So granted, this is our greenway, so that's why that doesn't go to A Street. But, leaving this one block off, leaving these little half blocks off, doesn't seem to make sense to me when these are dead ends. If we're gonna be having the equipment there and doing all this work, to not just, go an extra 200 feet to finish that off would be one concern to me, especially when now we're only talking about milling and grading and not even digging the streets up. So.
Yes,
So, just a fundamental question for me. In my mind, what drove the decision to put a road on this list or not was its placement on the PCI, or whether or not we needed to do a utility project on it. And so, for some of these, like 2nd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, there's neither a PCI nor a utility project. And so, I guess, could you explain to me some of the factors that you used to determine how that made the list, so that maybe, for me, that's a source of confusion.
Sure. The original list, was formed, I guess, during the first go-around, back in 2013, 2015. And it was updated in 2016, in terms of the PCI values for the roads. There are a number of things that drive these projects. Not only, the projects are primarily driven by the road needs, which is what the PCI number is for. So the basis for the program was to try and get all the roads in the city that fell below a PCI of 60 to get them, bring them up to speed, en masse, if you will, during a 4-year period of time. The rest of the roads would then fall into the normal maintenance programs and capital programs that the city had on an annual basis. Some of the roads, most of the roads are driven by that PCI number. And you can go back and look at the report and go back and do some digging and see what's going on with PCIs here. Some of the roads are driven in terms of when they're done, year 1, 2, 3, 4, are not necessarily driven by the condition of the road, but some of them are driven by the city's capital programs for stormwater and for water and sewer, because those funding sources are allotted over the course of 4, 5, or 6 years. So what was done was that the bond program, the priorities there were matched up with the priorities in terms of the funding availability in the water master plan, the sewer master plan, and the stormwater. And so some of the roads, for example, that are in year 1 and perhaps year 2 that are being done may appear to be in better condition than some of the roads in 3 or 4. That's generally because that's when funding was, that particular year is when funding was available for the water main improvements or the sewer improvements or the stormwater in that road. What happened, one of the things that happened here, there was a study that was done by CDM, 2012, 2013, citywide water management and drainage study. And they came up with a recommendation which was and is extremely expensive in terms of the amount of exfiltration trench that they were recommending to be installed. It was an extremely conservative report. Lots of expensive exfiltration trench everywhere, which this area was one of those areas. As we got into looking at it, we asked the consultants to go back and take a look at the model and verify what the results were. we were finding that for the money that it was going to cost versus the dollars available to do it versus the actual need for it, it was not cost effective. So that's probably what seems kind of strange here is that now we're doing these roads, but we're not doing the drainage that was.
Can you explain the exfiltration trench? I apologize.
Just a quick follow. The most important question in my mind is right now is why 2nd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th are being done. So what you're saying is that a while back, someone released a study that said that these roads need to be redone with some sort of better exfiltration design for water to soak to the ground naturally. And we decided not to follow through on the recommendations of that study, but we stuck with putting these roads in this bond program, even though they didn't match our PCI issues, and even though there are no water main projects or sewage projects for 2nd, 4th, 5th, or 6th.
Okay. You have to look at the timing of it now. Okay. Because the bond was approved by referendum. There's a resolution now after that lists all of the streets in there. Okay. And we legally cannot remove any of those streets. Sure. We have to do something to fix those streets. Okay. Now, up to that point, for example, here on 3rd and 4th and 6th, I think, according to that stormwater study that was done, there was a lot of drainage going in there. What we're doing is we're having our district engineers now review that as we go through. And of course, at this point in time, I don't know if we're closing the barn after the horse has already gone out, because those streets are already in the program.
I'm sorry. Just, from experience, actually, just, was that Thursday? No, today's Thursday. Tuesday. Excuse me. Summer's in. I'm a teacher, so I have no clue what day it is. Just from experience riding around with Ray, when it was raining, there are some really significant drainage issues on 2nd. I can speak to 3rd. But on 2nd at E Street and F Street, there's some really, really significant drainage issues, and they don't linger for too long a period of time. We went there and it was flooded in 4 directions, going right. We came back an hour later and it was not the same, much better, but it's maybe a little too late, but I would really like to see something done to address the drainage on 2nd.
Let me clarify that. Sure. In saying that the decision was made not to spend the money on the exfiltration trench in these neighborhoods, that doesn't mean that we're not going to fix those areas that you saw. Okay. We would prefer to focus that money on fixing the surface ponding and the surface flooding that we're seeing, which was not necessarily what those exfiltration trenches were going to do. Okay.
So you're saying that there are cheaper fixes to those issues?
Well, yeah, and it's very technical if you get into it. I don't want to bore you with that, but the exfiltration trench has more to do with capacity and reducing the amount of runoff that comes into overland and into some of those streets and into the system by getting it to exfiltrate in the ground before it, upstream there. But it doesn't necessarily, if you've got, as Rebecca described, if you've got some areas where you've had settlement around a catch basin, or for whatever reason, maybe you've got leaves clogging up or you've got a pipe clogged or whatever, the exfiltration trenches aren't going to fix that.
Right.
So the obvious ponding problems where we've got, and I rode out there as well, and 2nd and 3rd on F Street, and I took some pictures of it earlier this week when we were having rains. And yes, there's a need to deal with the surface drainage there where it backs up out on the curb line out into the parking areas, parallel parking areas. Those need to be fixed, and we will address that. But those are the kinds of drainage issues that it makes more sense to spend the money on rather than millions of dollars on upstream exfiltration trench.
Okay. I appreciate that explanation. Thank you.
It seems like what we were saying.
And my thought is, instead of milling roads that are in pretty decent shape, from what I understand, why was there any thought given to doing roads that are gravel right now that probably have no
That aren't paved?
Yeah, that aren't paved, but they weren't even on the list to do the study.
Jamie had his hand up. He's interested in answering.
Yeah, we want to concentrate on roads that they're actual roads right now, because we have a lot listed, as you guys know. That, by the way, Jamie Brown, Public Services Director. we're trying to knock those out systematically with CDBG funds and other methods, like some of the greenways we've done, like in District 1. When we have so many roads that need repairing, we didn't want to concentrate any of those funds on a lot of the east-west alleyways that currently are.
My understanding is that these roads really don't need the work, and it's so difficult to get CBG money right now.
Could I follow up?
Yes.
On that? So this is actually an ongoing conversation I've been having for the last 3 weeks with Jamie and Felipe and the city manager about unpaved roads and why I guess they weren't a higher priority for this program, and also as we get into the discussion for any sales tax. And basically, given the strictures that are placed on CDBG funds, and given the fact that we're actually a sub-recipient, we don't get CDBG funds directly from HUD, we get them from the county until we get a smaller amount. We thought, rather staff thinks, and I think now, that it was a better thing for us to finance our unpaved roads using this very restricted pot of money as opposed to using the bond money. I think, though, that there is an argument. I can understand why people will be concerned about why we haven't addressed, for example, 8th and 9th and 11th and 12th and other streets down south that aren't paved with this money immediately, as opposed to waiting until, years and years down the line until we get CDBG funds to turn these these into greenways. It was kind of a puzzle for me, and I'm only recently coming around to this staff thinking about that.
And it makes sense. And what it comes down to is, it might sound like a lot of money, $40 million. It's really not. If you guys recall back in 2013 when we went out for the first bond issue, that was $63.5 million. We actually dropped it when we went back this time, but $40 million, it's only going to stretch so far. So that's why we're having to be very, very careful as far as what we're going to implement on all of the different projects we have. When you get into a lot of the stormwater, the exfiltration trench is very, very expensive, and when you look at how much there was on all of those projects, that budget disappears very, very quickly. So we're trying to get as much out of these funds as we possibly can.
And I actually have a question, and it's exactly Ray's question. Why, I have a guess why the improvements on 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th did not extend all the way to the area just, that abuts the tracks. Was it because those areas are essentially unpaved and they,
I'll be honest,
it's like half a block?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, and I understand what you're talking about. I've been out there and seen some of those.
Yeah.
I would have to go back and look at the original report.
Okay.
And see what, delve into it and see what the reasoning behind drawing those limits was.
Could you make that report available to me at least? And if people ask, okay.
Was it 225 pages?
I got a free summary.
All of those little pieces are actually paved except for 6th Avenue that has a chunk that's kind of an odd chunk that's not paved. But they're in different states of pavement, and a lot of them, for somebody driving by, may automatically assume that they're part of commercial property and they're not city right away. And I just want to make sure that they actually even got a PCI score, that little half block between the alley to the tracks. I want to make sure that it did get included, because that would be a bad thing. I'm sorry?
It's a big oversight.
Oh, it would be a big oversight to just find out they didn't get done just because they weren't on the list. So.
Just a specific for an area. We are on the corner of 6th and C, and there's a drainage ditch there. But at some point in time, the road was sort of repaved, there was some patching, so we've got a bump on where we park our cars. So anytime stuff starts floating down the street, it gets caught in that, and then it backs up, and like this week, our car gets wet on the inside.
Really?
Is there anything that we can do to level that off? So everything just, the water
Maybe not
just
shave off the
flows
bump at C.
down?
You're on 6th?
At C.
Are you on 6th or on C?
We're on C.
Okay, so
But
you're,
we're on the corner.
okay. All right, we'll look at that.
Okay.
We typically, when we have intersections with streets that are not in the program, we'll typically go around the intersection, they like 25 feet at least, just to blend into what's
Okay,
there.
because that's about probably 20 feet or
50
so.
feet. 50 feet from the center
50
line.
feet.
Oh, okay.
Center line.
Yeah, it's just a little bump there. It just prevents things from floating down.
Hi, I'm Richard Stowe, and I don't know how far along this presentation has gotten. Has it been?
Well, because I know what you'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
I think we came thinking 2nd through 6th was going to be completely excavated and rebuilt.
Right.
Now we're looking at
Milling.
just milling and patching curbs and concrete that are bad.
Right.
So this changes a lot of perceptions of how, what we're able to
Right.
to look at as a neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, I just want to speak to the concept of like, if you're going forward with doing work on, in particular, 2nd Avenue North. And it's a one-way street that runs, obviously from A Street all the way down to Golfview. And I just came out of the tree board meeting and we discussed this proposal, discussed it a couple years ago, and now we brought it up again. The board is voted to support this, and that is sort of a reallocation of space in the 40-foot right-of-way, such that instead of having two 5-foot sidewalks, there would be a 6-foot sidewalk to allow for disability and both, like two people walking in different directions. And then a removal of the bike lane. So you have a 10-foot, right now you have a 10-foot motor vehicle lane and a 4-foot bike lane. So reducing that down to 10 feet. And then retaining the 7-foot, the 15 feet of parking, having two curbs, and then in that extra space it's creating an 8-foot native greenway. And there are a number of benefits that this would provide in terms of tree canopy and the 6-foot sidewalks. It would increase aesthetic of the streetscape. It increases biodiversity. In terms of population density, it provides walkable choices. So not only do you have, an improved sidewalk, for accessible 6-foot sidewalk, but you also have like a space for walking in the native greenway, for like a shaded public trail, if you will. It reduces pedestrian crossing across the street to 10 feet from, the parked car areas from 13, so that creates a safer environment for crossing. It also reduces, it creates a traffic calming effect, having a 14-foot wide right-of-way, whether it has a bike lane. Some of the roads don't have the bike lanes, like Pondway or Lakeside. That creates encouragement for speeding. Then impervious surface cover, it mitigates stormwater runoff. You can design these so they have a swale effect and address water issues in that manner. Surface temperature, it mitigates the urban heat island effect. There's health benefits that accrue from that, and there's infrastructure benefit in terms of less wear on your asphalt or concrete. Particulate matter, it cleans the air. It has a cleaning effect in the air quality. Economic benefits, that's probably one of the best. All these are good benefits, but each native tree is planted. For every dollar that's spent on that native tree, there's a $5.60 benefit in terms of ecosystem services. And then infrastructure costs in itself, you actually have like -4 feet in terms of asphalt, because you're taking out the bike lane, and you have -4 feet in terms of concrete. And then you also, in terms of concrete, you have the benefit of, aside from the curb, which is like a special machine, you have the benefit of just having that concrete only have to go on one side. And I think that kind of wraps it up. And this, I actually presented this idea more informally. I had some written materials to submit. I presented it more informally on North J Street. So the final question is, well, where do you put this native greenway? And you want to do that in terms of maximum benefit. Like for an east-west street, you want to do it on the south side, because the sun comes in from the south. On the north, well, that doesn't pertain here, but for this particular, street, 2nd Avenue North, you do it on the south side so that you maximize the reduction.
I can't argue with anything you've said at all. What I can tell you is they're important issues. They are, at this point in time, relative to this program, there really are planning issues that we as consultants, I can't answer that question about that. I can't tell you that we'll look into it and we'll see about doing this or that, because we're consultants and we're being directed by the city what we're going to do here.
Of course.
Those are issues that you need, it sounds like you probably have been bringing up with the city commission and the associated boards, the appointed boards with the city. As I said, I have all good points, all very good points.
Thank you.
I don't know what we can do with it, at this point in this program. Yes, sir.
If the city was willing to listen to this and go forward with it, are the consultants willing to accept it? I mean, is it something that you're saying that you agree with? It sounds good and it's wonderful.
It's an issue for the city. I mean, the consultants are getting paid to do what the city, use their professional expertise to do what the city wants done. We would have to get that direction from the city.
But once you got it from the city,
Then we have to go do it.
I realize you still have more of a presentation, and I don't want to jump ahead of that. But obviously, as a neighborhood, we were looking at a project that we felt had the potential to have a neighborhood input of maybe bigger changes than maybe is possible with just a mill and overlay. I don't know that. So maybe we want to hear the rest of your presentation. And then I do have, and this is not something you can answer, but it's a question I want to put out. If we have money that was set aside for an exfiltration trench, was that bond money? Was that water utility money? Was it other? When was that decision made and where's that money going? And then obviously, if you're not excavating all of these streets and you're only doing mill and overlay, that's a significant savings of money. And where's that bond money going? So
There's $40 million, round numbers, of bond money for the street improvements, for the hardscape improvements. The water and sewer improvements are funded by the city's water and sewer enterprise funds. Okay. The drainage and stormwater improvements are funded by the city's stormwater fund. So the bond money is not being spent on utilities. The bond money is not being spent on underground drainage or anything else. It's strictly being spent on road money. So yes, frankly, in all candor, it's not so much that we're saving money by not, for example, building all this exfiltration trench. The truth of the matter is, it is just so expensive that there is not enough budget in the stormwater fund, which would have to pay for that, to actually build all that.
If I can put that a different way.
Sure.
It's not that we went out and got the bond based on plans to do this exfiltration trench, and then decided after the fact not to do that with the bond money, and so there's all this leftover money there. It's just that it was never considered for this pot of money. And so there's no money that we have saved, it's just money that we never decided to spend in the first place.
Right, there's certain streets included in the bond fund. And then when we get ready to do the design for that, we say, like I mentioned before, we got to see, well, is there a water main under here that is just about ready to fail? We need to replace it. Well, yes, we want to do that before we improve the roadway, but you have to get money from another pot. And so we look at everything before we dig up the street and figure out what all has to happen together.
And the surface drainage improvements that I spoke of earlier that we absolutely will do, they're not underground utilities, they're like changing the grading on a curve or adjusting the top on a structure. Yeah, those are bond funded because that's part of the surface infrastructure.
That might help the functionality.
It will help the functionality of the drainage and get the water off the street, but it's not underground piping, it's not exfiltration trenches.
I think in the case of what Omari and I saw, and just this is a one snapshot, and I don't live near this corner, but the two areas that we saw that were heavily flooded, it wasn't an issue with the surface issues. This is an issue with water coming in reverse, coming back up the storm drains. So obviously this is an underground issue of capacity and where the water was going and how much can be taken at one time. So these streets were flooding not because the storm sewers couldn't handle the water, it's because literally the water is being pumped up into the intersection. That doesn't sound like what we're talking about. Surface, changing the slight elevation of a storm drain or whatever is going to address this at all.
Right. The other thing you have to understand is the rainfall we got this week is like 7 inches, 8 inches?
8 inches.
8 inches rainfall is I haven't designed a street in a long time because I'm retired, and then I got retired, so here I am. But 7 inches of rainfall is more rainfall than I would normally have designed a drainage system in a residential subdivision for. I know, whatever it was when I was doing subdivisions. There's a certain capacity that you will design a drainage system for. And if the rainfall in the runoff exceeds that capacity, which from time to time it will, in terms of what we call what level of storm it is, a 5-year, 10-year, 25-year, 100-year storm, yeah, you're going to flood. In terms of the drainage design, it's not cost effective to design and build a drainage system that will keep the street dry for, a 25-year storm or 100-year storm.
And that's what this is, yeah.
I live at Second It'll have for 37 years. That corner's been flooding, and it doesn't take what we've had in the last 3 days to make it flood. My husband goes out there constantly and digs away with leaves that found out that's not leaves. It just something with the sewer, it doesn't drain properly, it does come back up. It doesn't, I know this week was a really good time to see it, but it floods every time it rains, a good rain.
You say your husband goes out and there's a lot of debris that gets on top of the catch basins?
But we move it constantly. He's home, we're retired.
Which is, God, I missed that. Which is, it's a typical issue, and it doesn't sound like that's the only issue you're having, but it's a very typical issue, particularly when you have residential neighborhoods that have a lot of yard maintenance crews in there, and they kind of dump the clippings in the curb.
We don't have yard maintenance in our area.
But you'll get leaves coming off of trees and canopy trees and things.
That's more like it.
So yeah, and that's, of course, that blocks the water from getting into
Yeah, but we pretty much take care of that. I'm just saying, it's a drainage issue, and it comes back up, so there's something more going on there.
Yeah, and it could be an obstruction to pipe. There are a number of things that could be happening here. What we've had to do in some cases for our South Park consultants, and by we I mean the city, has had to send crews out there and televise drainage lines to you see exactly, I see what the plans when this was built 40 years ago said it was, but the surveyors can't find what that says, so we have to go out and TV the line. And that's a typical maintenance activity that happens in any case. And you find a problem, you find an obstruction, you find a broken joint in a pipe or something like that, then it's a maintenance activity that we spot repair.
Were there other things in the presentation that I guess you guys haven't gotten a chance to discuss?
Well, I think as you mentioned, you were kind of hoping for a little more of a holistic kind of program. So we were interested in presenting some potential enhancements for the neighborhood and getting your opinion on what three of what your vote would be for top three type things. So, you mentioned the tree canopy, and that's Courtney, I don't know if you can pass out those extra sheets. And then we have we'll have you come up in a minute and give you the three stickers, and if you want to vote on which three things is most important to you. So we've got like palm trees or canopy trees, sidewalks, signage like the city's intending to replace all the signs, all the street signs anyway for the neighborhood. So there's a standard now that the city has with the white border around the street name sign. So we'll be doing that anyway. Crosswalks, and then this lower half has to do with traffic calming, like speed reducers, like a speed hump, bump outs. This is something similar to what you have on 5th. Where right at the intersection it kind of narrows in, and you've got the pavers with the tree. Fifth Avenue North Lane narrowing. Shared bike lanes and school zone striping. So, or if there's some other element we can add to it, maybe addressing flooding issues would be something we can put another box on here. But we kind of wanted everyone to give us your top three priorities. As we said, with the budget restrictions, we can't necessarily give you everything.
My question is, most of these things you're going to address anyway, or the city's going to address, correct? And you said that there's only certain sidewalks that you're going to fix.
We're fixing only the cracked sidewalks,
Right.
and if there's no sidewalk now, we'll be adding sidewalk.
Okay.
Based on our input?
No.
Or
No.
just
Regardless.
So it looks to me, except for the...
Yeah, don't waste your vote on
on
sidewalks.
sidewalks?
Except for the canopy, it's kind of an exercise in futility to put our dots there. I mean, you're not going to do a bulb out on a road mill. I mean, obviously, you're not going to...
Or are you?
Or are you?
We could.
Well,
And I guess,
I mean, we would tear out the curb, the straight curb section now, and put in a bulb out.
so that's a consideration.
So yeah, we could do that. We could do speed humps. We're gonna have one of the things. Another one we could add another box. Right now you have stop signs to stop east-west traffic, but it seems like there's really not a north-south stop. Maybe we could add, that could be something if you want to do something to address that.
So a couple questions. I just want to clarify, under signage, most of our signs have been replaced in the last year, and I don't know if that was a stopgap measure because they were so bad, and if there's actually an improved version that we may opt for or we would be getting anyway, and if there's even a purpose for putting a dot next to signage since all streets have to have signs. So I'm not sure how that's addressed. Also crosswalks as well, because if there's an area that's going to require a crosswalk, it's going to happen anyway. So I'm not sure what putting a vote there, you have to kind of elaborate on what that potentially would get you. And it's also sidewalks. The sidewalks are going to be there anyway, so putting a dot on sidewalks, is that a vote for something special or something different, a different texture? I'm just curious, on these things.
That's kind of why we're here tonight, is to
Okay.
find out if,
And I do have a concern about stop signs. It's become a very effective method in our neighborhood. There may be a counter, position to that, or a traffic study position to that. But for what we've seen on the ground, we've had some very effective additional stop signs, and I certainly could recommend certain streets where they could be added as well. But that would be up to Public Works or up to, a traffic study. So that's several of my questions.
I was just gonna say, it seems like we shouldn't be wasting our dots on sidewalks, signage, school zones, and crosswalks, because those are things that you guys are pretty much gonna put there anyway. So I guess everything else is what's really up for
yeah,
grabs.
we'll be doing standard thermoplastic white striping crosswalks. If there's something fancier, do that, costs money, but I guess this is not a historic neighborhood with your own special street signs, because they have that in some of the other neighborhoods. So that's kind of what that signage was.
I guess if we were more clear on, this is not directed to you, this is a general, if we were more clear specifically, if I showed everybody a picture about some kind of specialty crosswalk or some kind of specialty intersection, and everybody lit up and said, oh, that would look awesome in our neighborhood, then that would be different. Maybe everybody's dots would go toward that, but as it is now, nobody's going to think
Again,
about
focusing
that.
on the idea that the thrust of this program is to fix the problems with the street, which include traffic, if there are speeding issues. And I'll give you an example in terms of crosswalks. Yeah, every place that we have curb ramps for crosswalks, there's going to be a white painted crosswalk. If you have speeding issues, sometimes a good resolution to that is a raised crosswalk at an intersection. That's different than just a white painted crosswalk. You have some of those on A Street.
Yeah.
So we need you to tell us, is that a concern?
So, the neighborhood association, we talked about different things, roundabouts, and bulb outs was one of the things we talked about. And I know they're going to cost money, so you don't have to say that to me, I know it costs money. But what about if all of a sudden everybody puts their dot on a bulb out on a specific location? Do you include irrigation and planting with that? Is that something?
Yeah, that's actually a concern of mine as well.
Yeah.
Are all these bulb outs going to be planted? And I guess from there we can have questions about irrigation, but I don't want to see just concrete. Like on Fifth Avenue, for example, the lane narrow. It's all just like stamped or with
Yeah, it's a pavers.
or what have you.
Yeah.
I don't know where you would get tree canopies or any planting unless you do a bulb out on most of this. So that's the only opportunity you're going to get a canopy possibly is in a bulb out. So, right?
No, actually, absolutely. If anybody votes for canopy trees, that would be certainly a voice for trees, but you can't put a canopy tree anywhere in our neighborhood without doing some kind of modification to the street. There is no swale. So there are certain things that go hand in hand. I'd almost rather see maybe 3 different design elements that incorporate all of these features and allowing the public to vote on the one they like the best as far as visual or as far as effectiveness, if that makes sense.
Well, if you put your dots on canopy trees, and there's predominance of dots on canopy trees, and we have the need to put bulb outs in, then it's obvious to us that trees in your neighborhood are a priority for you, okay, if there's all these dots up there. So we will look at putting some suitable planting in the bulb out. Now, the thing you have to understand is as soon as we do that, we're incurring a regular maintenance problem or issue or activity for the public services staff. Just have to balance that out. We've gotten some of these dot survey results back where most of what we've been seeing is speed reducing things about basic infrastructure in there. And they've looked at the same thing, and we've got maybe 1 or 2 dots on common trees, county trees, whatever. So that tells us that, okay, if we need to put a bulb out in here to solve a traffic issue, or to slow traffic down at an intersection, whatever, the neighborhood is not overly interested in whether we landscape it or not. So we're not going to spend anything to do with that. Plus, the neighborhood tells us that we're really interested in that. That's part of the process that we want to try and get here tonight.
So if you see a lot of dots on bulb outs and a lot of dots on canopy trees, you're going to put those two together and say.
We'll see how much of it we can do within the budgetary constraints.
And then, so the next time you're going to come back and the plan's going to be 95% done, and you're going to tell us why these things can't be done. At what point do you come to us or we come to you and say, this is where we would like to put them? You know what I mean? But there's no opportunity to have public input until you come back with 95% of the plan done.
Actually, there is.
That's news.
You're going to have comment sheets tonight that you can take and get back to us. You can go on the website, which is lakeworthroads.com, and you have the ability to contact us and make those kinds of comments there.
So we say, okay, but when you put all this together, when all the dots come together, is that when you're going to come to us and say, okay, this is what you guys wanted? It's 95% done, this is what you guys wanted. Or are you going to post that online and say, okay, Tropical Ridge or whatever the district here, Tropical Ridge said, we want bulb out and we want canopy trees. This is the predominant thing. Do we go to you? Do we go to the website and say, okay, this is where we would like to see them? How does that work?
Sure. If you have specific locations, let us know. You know, we don't have the resources to track all that down in an even meeting like this. But yeah, contact us. Fill out the comment sheets.
So how long do we have before that happens? When's the next meeting? There's 95%.
Okay. So if we want to take the initiative to work together and figure out what we want the most of and where we want, and then come back to you early enough in the process to where you guys can incorporate whatever we can afford into the designs, then you will, right, whatever you can afford, it's constrained maximization, then you will take into account that input from us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And when would you like that? You know, from a consultant's point of view, at what point would you say, no, it's too late, we can't do that?
We're getting what we call OPCs, opinions of probable cost, from our consultants at various stages in the plan. And when we get those, we're constantly matching that up with our budget. So at some point in time, that kind of input we need as quickly as we can get it.
So before July 4th, let's say. It's going to be hard, which is why it takes initiative. But
Commissioner, may I ask, what additional information, other than what we'd be doing tonight, which is getting an idea of, are people interested in canopy trees or palm trees, or what exactly are people interested in? Other than the information we gather from when everyone puts their dots up there, what additional information would we be looking to get?
I think what I'm gleaning,
What's that?
Where it would be placed for one
Specific
thing.
yeah.
Oh, actual specific locations.
So what I'm gleaning from the room is that we have some options here, and then we're choosing from among these options, right? And it's kind of like a voting process. We put our stickers up there, and they take into account what we want the most of, and also the budget, and then they go ahead and decide where and how these things get implemented.
Okay.
I think what the room wants is some opportunity to participate in that in-between step. Not necessarily that we're not being offered something that we want, but that we want greater participation in its implementation.
We're trying to...
I understand as logistical problems, but if we're willing to do the work and have a meeting when it's not scheduled and bring to you guys something concrete that fits within the budget, then maybe that works. But that depends on those of us in the room getting together fairly quickly. I think that's the issue.
Okay, yeah, because when we're setting all these up, and keep in mind we have 4 different districts, and we've got multiple meetings every week for the next 4 years.
This is not a
So-
process that you can.
Yeah, exactly. So the initial thought and how we tried to put this whole thing together was to meet on every single project with the affected people in that area once at the beginning of the process, before the actual design takes place, so we can get exactly what we want to get tonight. Which
And
is
take
an
a
idea-
measure of input.
which is an idea of what the residents want in that particular area.
This is the before.
Then this is the before. So this is like the before meeting. And then after we take all this data, we take that back and take that into account when the actual design is happening. And then we come back for the second meeting basically saying, based on everything you guys showed us in the first meeting and what everyone's actual interests were, this is what we came out with based on the actual 40-foot right-of-way, the traffic calming improvements that need to go in, everything that has to go in the meat and potatoes, and then we look at the additional stuff and say, this is what we can afford to put in. So that's what we come back with.
If I can use a metaphor, it's like we're choosing the ingredients, and the chefs are choosing what to do with these ingredients. You know, I can tell you chicken, but you can fry it, you can bake it, you can roast it, you can do all sorts of things with it. And then, you know, we come back with a final product. You know, it's like we get a plate of food and we decide yay or nay on that, you know, whether or not, you know, we like it. I think what our neighborhood is saying is that we want to have greater participation in the choice. Okay, yes, we've given you the ingredients. How exactly are you going to use those ingredients? I think that's what we want to have some greater input on. Am I wrong, Phil, or anyone else here in the room?
No, because what it kind of sounds like is that, you know, we give you, like, we want tree canopies and we want bump outs. So you know, that seems to be the feel of like maybe what we want. And so you take that and you show us what, like, okay, it's 95% done. This is kind of what you get. I think we want to have more of that in between before we just get handed, like, here's your bump outs, this is it. And that might not be possible, but I think that's kind of the gist is like,
Where those things are.
And can.
where they're going to be and what
in
they're going
order
to look like before it's 95% done. Because then that's like you said, the horse has left the barn. It's like, well,
And in order to get, let's say, bulb out with some canopy trees, is it conceivable to take a road that really doesn't need the work? That money can go to something that the neighborhood would really like and would help with traffic calming? I mean, is that an option? Can we trade off?
What is not an option is to not do something on every
You've
road
already
that's on
said
that,
that,
in that resolution.
Yeah, the problem is the bond language and everything that everyone voted on was very specific. There was also the bond covenants. We list every single road that's going to be done. So when people went and voted on that, they voted on it based on a specific list of projects and roads that were going to be done.
So to open you up to, like,
So then why put
Exactly. So we could now go back and say, well, I know we said when you voted yes
Now we're not
for $40
gonna do
million
Sixth Avenue because
that it
you
was
don't
right,
see
but
it.
we're going to pull these streets off now and kind of put that money here, and that's what I think there was a lot
My
of
question
confusion
is,
first.
then why put any of that up if you can't really conceivably do it with the funding that you have?
But we can't concede. We just can't do whatever do.
We can't do everything.
I'm sorry?
I said, we can conceivably do some of what you're asking for, you know, depending on how much it is. Maybe we can do all of it. We don't know until you tell us, and then we have to look at the budget.
Well, we're trying to start the conversation tonight because, like, we had another project where we went in with a certain plan and we were taking all the on-street parking away. And that was the one thing they wanted, so we changed it. So, but we didn't know that's what the one thing they wanted was. So that's kind of what we're here tonight. Well, what's the most or the one or two biggest things to you? You can't get everything, but we're going to try and get you what comes close, you know?
And that's a perfect example, because we thought
Right.
traffic calming would be number one, or maybe they really wanted landscaping. They did not care about landscaping, they didn't care about
Yeah.
traffic. You know, they're like, all we want is our parking.
We want our parking, don't take
Where else you want
our
to go?
space away.
And we get different priorities from different neighborhoods.
Right.
And that's an easy fix. I mean, putting parking back there is pretty, I mean, if it's already have parking there, yeah, you're just striping it off to park again, basically.
I think that we're much more flexible in the proposed project because all of these east-west streets, of course, they do have on-street parking, but I think because of the way most of our houses are on the lettered streets, that you have a lot more leeway to do something else, whether that's narrowing the lanes or bulb outs, because there are stretches where it's not car after car after car. I mean, you do have more space. to still leave on-street parking, but to do additional intersection work.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think on-street parking is really important, especially just from my experience, 2nd Avenue North. It's like extremely important with all the churches, with all the apartment complexes to the north side, with Lake Worth Towers, and the businesses as you get closer to the tracks. I tend to think on-street parking is.
And that's why bulb outs can be a really great way to deal if.
Because it accentuates it.
Well, because you have a sight distance that you have to maintain at the intersection for direction, so you can do that with a bulb out and not have any parking.
Right.
Because that's the area that's striped out now,
Right.
the intersection.
Exactly. And a bulb out and a bump out is the same thing.
Same thing.
Okay. I just wanted to-
Yeah.
I just, two things. I wanted to request that an opinion of probable cost be done with this concept of the 8-foot greenway and 6-foot sidewalk. And the second thing is I want to include another traffic calming measure into the dialogue, and that is something called a mini roundabout, which has a runnable feature to it. It's FDOT and USDOT approved.
I know what you're talking about. In fact, there's one on A Street.
Yeah.
And there are also 3 stop signs there as well.
There we go. I was
Yeah.
gonna say people don't know what to do.
Well,
The problem is, frankly, and I've had a lot of experience with this in Delray Beach on Highland Roadway. The problem is that, particularly with 40-foot right-of-ways, you don't have enough right-of-way to put something like that in the intersection, develop your lanes on the outside, and have it really workable. You need, I don't know, it works great in front of the high school here.
You're getting confused. You're getting confused like between a modern roundabout. Okay, that was actually one of possibly the first modern roundabout that was actually constructed in the state of Florida over there by the high school. And a mini roundabout. I like to think of there's a mini roundabout up in West Palm Beach on
Alhambra.
well, he has one on Alhambra, and I know of one on Washington Avenue near Southern, and those are actually designed to go into any space. And actually, what you do is you, depending on the right of way, the size of the mini roundabout is determined dependent on that actual roundabout, on the right of way. So if it's 40 feet, you're going to produce a mini roundabout of a certain size. If it's 60 feet, you've got 50 feet, it would be a larger roundabout. Like, for example, like Federal Highway has like 3 lanes as opposed to 2. So you have a 2-3 combination. So there you would that would allow for a larger mini roundabout. And they're runnable, so that like if a truck needs to go, not that you can have very many trucks on your neighborhood streets, but I'm just saying they're designed so they can accommodate
For the fire department, for emergency.
You have to have emergency access, which is why you typically don't see speed humps or speed bumps on an access street like 6th Avenue. So, things like that.
And also, I did want to thank you for bringing that up. I did want to say that I served for 4 years as a founding board member of the Connecticut Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Board, which was authorized by the Complete Streets legislation that Governor Rell signed into law in Connecticut. And it's pretty clear among transportation planners that vertical treatments like speed humps and speed bumps are really yesterday's way of approaching, traffic calming, and that there's adverse impacts in terms of speed that can accrue from those type of treatments. So, just to put that on the record.
To respond to both of your requests, especially the particular cost estimate you're looking for, we're going to have to, that determination is going to have to be made by staff, and they're going to have to tell us to do it, because there's a cost involved with that for the
Such
city.
a huge cost involved.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now why it wouldn't happen, because, if you're talking about like multiple blocks, are you talking about like 8th Street all the way down to like Tracks or something, or? Like where we would have like 8 foot wide.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's being stretched as we are right now, grounds-wise, the whole thing with the greenways is, we've kind of picked this up with outside contractors and everything like that. But we're trying to do things that aren't going to add a large maintenance component, which is why when we were talking about bulb outs and putting shade trees or palm trees, you notice we're not talking about any type of shrubbery or anything that's going to require a large landscaping component, because we're trying to keep our actual maintenance down.
Well, and I'm completely with you on that in terms of that's why, specifically we're like proposing like a native greenway, and there are plants that require, native plants that require maintenance, and there's native plants that really are low to, everything, plants require water again. But when you have native plants that are used to the drought cycle of the winter, once they're established, you don't need to water them. And then as far as the type of plants, those are some details that are achievable.
And keep in mind, cost too, that's a very long stretch and a lot of money.
But then again, there's savings with the 40 feet of that's 8 feet.
Yeah, and that's,
If I can just, I don't know, well, it seems to be a very interesting idea. I don't know how feasible it is given where we are right now in this particular project, and given that much of the design, it alters many of the basic elements of the design. And where we are right now, it doesn't seem like we can do that. But then in addition to that, there might be other reasons to, there might be other concerns that people might have that aren't necessarily as, what some people might consider as defeatist, as management and cost issues, just in terms of it just being very not standard and not really tested and proven, and there being many unknowns with that. And then in addition to that, I have a concern about getting rid of the bike lane on 2nd Avenue, because it, to me, is, and I know you're a cyclist, but it's like probably the second most important street in our neighborhood for people trying to go east-west. And I tend to use the bike lane as well there. Then there's the off-street parking concerns, and then there's the fact that even though you have a sidewalk on one side that's larger than a standard sidewalk, you're still losing the total amount of footage in terms of sidewalks on both sides. And then you essentially say that if you want to walk on this side of the street and enjoy the canopy, you have to be willing to walk on an uneven, unpaved surface, which, if you're in a wheelchair, if you're a mom pushing a stroller, if you have a number of other issues, it's just not really feasible. So I would just be in favor of doing something very standard for our neighborhood as someone who uses the streets a lot.
And keep in mind, we're a grid system. Our city's a standard, the old school grids. I mean, there's an alignment issue with that as well too. So.
And you did mention the timing of the program, and I will tell you that is another concern, because it's moving very, very quickly. We're going to have construction starting probably late August, early September. Some of the easier projects, and then it's going to continue. We're kind of breaking our engineers' elbows on this, because we've got them designing 2 years worth of projects this year, so that we can start the first year project, and then we can start the second year project right at the beginning of the year, construction-wise.
So I just as a message, I guess, from me to the people who are in my neighborhood and who live here with me, I think that if we're going to want greater input into some of the details of the design, I think we need to be very judicious about which elements of the design that we want our input on, because it's somewhat of a strain, and just understanding this is something that's probably being done for us and can't be done for everyone around the city, because this is an absolutely massive project. So I would say that if we want to have a greater input here, we should first of all move quickly, second of all be very judicious about it, and get them our input really, really fast, preferably
Everybody, let's do it.
Yeah, stickers, for sure. And if you want to do anything else, I think.
Feel free to use the pens and write on the board if you wanted to change something or add something. The comment.
Page here.
This page came from Those are just so you can see. Just put them on the board.
These stickers on the board.
Yeah, they were supposed to go on the board.
Sorry. No, it works.
We can hold on to those and keep it as part of the comments. I think so. Put those on there. That way, it's there.
There's no change in the market. It's exactly the same. It's right down.
I know.
What's going on?
It's got the box.
Okay.
Yeah, but,
This is like.
don't worry, it'll wear off. Might take a little bit. I'm always ready.
There we're okay. But on one of the streets, we have a Oscar wide lane. All right.
Which should manifest.
Yeah. And, okay, now, let me just say something.
Glad y'all came out.
Right now.
We're glad, we want to hear you.
J Street is the one that's got a finish. What's going to happen? Once there's 25, 45 mile J Street right now.
You sure?
Soon to that, you get a 15-foot right of okay, yeah, so you have the 14-foot right of way. My forecast is the speeds are going to go up.
As part of this project, roots from a tree are heaving up the sidewalk.
I can't.
Have the contractor root prune the tree.
By the airways.
And tear out those segments and lay new ones. So they'll be selecting new ones. And like I said, if there's no sidewalks, they're going to put that in. Even if somebody's planted